Hello everyone, I'm Allysia, your host of Online PianoCon 2019, the internet's first piano convention. Let's get into it. So what I'm going to be taking you through today is how to write your first pop song.
The balance idea is the same. We want to have, the fingers be the legs of the arm. I don't know why, but I always loved that moment.
I mean, the first thing I would say about that is that in order to make this work mechanically, it can't just be from the finger. And I think a lot of people make the mistake with piano playing is thinking that it's fingers that have to do the work. It's fingers, but it's what happens behind the fingers that's important.
And loud is one of the hardest things to do on the piano because you tire out so easily. So, for instance, one of my nemesis growing up was playing that Liszt Rhapsody No. 6. You've just exhausted yourself with like 6 straight pages of that stuff, and then it says fortissimo, like...
So I totally understand not wanting to use a lot of apps or technology because you're just playing music. You want to enjoy the piano. But I believe there's tools that are out there, technology tools that can really help serve a purpose when you're learning piano.
And again, this is a really important lesson on the piano. People want to do tons of stuff, they want to be really flashy, but don't underestimate how much you can do with just a little bit. You really can do a lot with a little on the piano.
Right, so the biggest thing that I find with my students in real life and also students on the internet is that the first thing that they try to do is write in all of the letter names. And as a music teacher, that is like such a, it pains me to see it.
The theory isn't something that should frustrate you or that you should memorize. It's something that should come organically as you learn to understand how music sounds. Oh, that's different.
The experience of playing in front of people kind of brings something different out of us, and we find ourselves rising to this other level of playing. And in the act of playing itself, with other people on stage, or even if it's just ourselves, transcendence not the right word, but it's in and of itself, it becomes an extremely gratifying and satisfying and meaningful experience. And so I think once you've had one of those, it kind of gets you more hooked on, oh, that was actually pretty awesome. I'd love to have that experience more. And
when you master something, that adds a lot of value to the world. What's great about the 12-bar blues is it has a very simple form, and it's using some bass concepts. So how to build a C chord, an F chord, and a G chord. That's all that's really necessary.
So it's a little bit of an integration between mindfulness techniques in a traditional style and music education, and how those two combine together. I think it was at that point where I started to understand that music is something that we learn with our body as well, and that helped me then eventually integrate mindfulness into the practice.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you probably the most important progression in swing music. It's called the turnaround progression, and it's used on a ton of different tunes. Like, the tune I've Got Rhythm?
Yes.
Okay, that's a turnaround progression. And cheek to cheek. You know that tune? Okay. There's literally almost all the tunes in the book use the turnaround. So we're going to talk about the turnaround progression.
As students play the music on screen, the sasser determines how accurately the student has played notes and rhythms. The test intelligently finds exercises that are near the student's reading ability and uses various score results to generate the student's sasser score.
It all has to do with how you break apart something to understand it better. The more you understand about how the piece was built, sort of in reverse, you start to see different patterns, different harmonic structures, different melodic structures, all of these different parts that when you understand them, your playing will reflect that.
And you can get like 5 or 6 ideas in a row. And what's good about that is you can be very deliberate about what you choose to not do. Like, I just did this kind of rhythm, and so I'm going to deliberately not do that. Or I just used this key, I'm going to deliberately not use that key.
And obviously I wouldn't end it like that, but I just kind of wanted to bring it home.
And this is the thing. Sometimes you have to get to good enough. Like, okay, that'll do.
So I'm going to be talking about what to do with major and minor triads once you've learned them. They provide the basic foundation of harmony, and especially so on a piano, because it's so visual compared to an instrument such as guitar or trumpet. They really help to visually lay down the building blocks of theory, and you kind of get to see how chords are all connected, which is pretty cool. Well, at least I think it's pretty cool.
I realised that I needed to meet other pianists. It's quite lonely being a pianist. I mean, I quite like the solitary nature of being a pianist, but I think it's also really helpful to meet other pianists because we've got lots of common issues, and it's just helpful to meet them and to talk about the things that interest and trouble us as pianists.
Every sonata has different challenges. Every piece you learn has new things. And I would find that when I would work on a new piece and then come back to an old piece, I could play it better in that interim, like I'd gained some new skills without realizing it that actually helped with old pieces.
In Renaissance and Baroque and classical music, no one ever really settled what happens with the 6th and 7th scale degrees in minor because of the way scales were constructed back then. So that's why we have these 3 forms of minor all sort of existing uneasily with each other. That doesn't happen in major.
Right, there's just one way to do a major scale.
It's magic in that you cannot, assuming you stick to just these 6 notes that are in the scale. Now you can do it in any octave you want, but if you play nothing but one of these 6 notes in the blues scale, you cannot play a wrong note while you're playing through the blues progression like we just were. Whether you're on the C section or on the F section or on the G section, these 6 notes will sound hip no matter where you are.
Well, you know, as a young student, I hated theory and I was very frustrated. I just didn't really feel like I understood it. And when I started teaching piano, I realized like, oh, you know what? You're going to have to learn this because you've got to teach music theory.
You know, when people think about why music theory, first of all, I think the starting point is this is something for musicians. It's not something for non-musicians, which already is kind of something I have a problem with, because what it implies is that music theory is important when you're sitting at the piano and it's not important any other time.
Our ears, when we are listening to a song or melody or anything, whatever note is on top is the note that stands out the most. If you look at any 4-part harmony, you have the bass, you have the tenor, and then you have the alto, and you have the melody on top, which is usually performed by the sopranos, because the melody is what stands out most. And when you put the melody in the center, that's when you have voicings and you're voicing chords and notes, but the melody can get lost. So I wanted the melody to be on top because it's the main melody, main tune that everyone is listening for. Hopefully they know what it is. So that's why I want that to stand out on top, and then underneath I can just play around with my fingers.